Immaculate is a psychological horror film directed by Michael Mohan and written by Andrew LaBelle. It stars Sydney Sweeney, who also produced the film. At the start of the film, a nun named Sister Mary sneaks into a superior's bedroom at night and steals a ring of keys to escape through the locked gates of the Roman Catholic convent. She is captured and her leg is broken before being knocked unconscious by 4 hooded figures. She later wakes up in a coffin and is buried alive. That's how the movie starts. Then the title screen happens, which was a very good opening scene in my opinion. The plot focuses on a young novice nun who is played by Sydney Sweeney, who is invited to reside at a picturesque Italian convent, but slowly realizes the terrifying secrets it harbors. Cecilia turned to Christianity at an early age after she nearly drowned in a frozen lake and was declared dead for 7 minutes. Convinced that God had saved her for a purpose, she receives an invitation from Father Sal Tedeschi to join a convent in Italy that tends to dying nuns in their last days. Cecilia befriends Sister Gwen, who seems to be the only normal nun compared to the others. During one scene, she discovers a nun laying face flat on the floor with a red cloth mask covering her over her hood. She then tries to get help, but the Reverend Mother was right behind her. She then proceeds to show her what they claim to be the nail that Jesus was crucified with, then claims that suffering is good. Cecilia faints shortly after holding this religious artifact. Cecilia has a nightmare that red-masked hooded figures stab her in the stomach. Then she wakes up. The Reverend Mother then assigns the other nun, who is strangely jealous of Cecilia, to mentor her for the coming months. On another night when Cecilia is sleeping, one of the nuns who is mentally disturbed cut Cecilia's hair and claimed it to be blessed. She proceeds to put the mentally disturbed nun to bed, then notices her feet where 2 crosses are branded. Cecilia begins to feel sick. The main priest asks her if she's faithful to her vows and if she's ever had intercourse before. Cecilia is honorable to her vows. Later they do a test on her and they find out that she is pregnant without sin. They claim it to be a miracle and treat her like she's the second coming of Mary. It then flashes forward to her second trimester of being pregnant. She's having a calm bath when suddenly the other nun who was jealous of her from the start starts trying to drown her, claiming that it should have been her instead. Cecilia then wanders around the courtyard. Then she suddenly spots the red-masked hooded people from her nightmares. Suddenly, the other nun who was jealous of her falls from many floors above. We then see a gruesome depiction of the body after the fact. Shortly after this, Sister Gwen starts lashing out at the priest and all the other nuns because they are acting so calm after this tragedy just happened. She is then dragged away unwillingly. Cecilia then wanders the courtyard at night time, where she discovers that Sister Gwen is getting tortured. Sister Gwen gets her tongue cut off. Just as Cecilia is about to scream, the mentally disturbed nun shushes her. She then presents Cecilia with a voodoo doll made out of Cecilia's hair from earlier, claiming that it is still blessed. Cecilia asks this nun to help her. Then the nun tells her that no one ever leaves here. That was a great suspenseful scene. Cecilia then, the next day, fakes that the baby's coming by killing a chicken and using its blood to convince everyone else to drive her to a hospital. But the Reverend Mother, for some weird reason, starts to bask herself in the blood, but then realizes that it was chicken blood from a chicken's body under Cecilia's bed. The Reverend Mother then calls as Cecilia's getting driven away to the hospital. She then realizes that her plan failed and she tries running away from them in a field, but they capture her and take her back. After being captured and taken back to the convent, Father Sal shows her all the failed previous attempts of having the second coming of Christ. They then proceed to brand both of Cecilia's legs with the cross. Cecilia is almost due at this point of her pregnancy. She then proceeds to kill the Reverend Mother. Shortly after this happens, her water breaks, and she's in a frantic effort to escape the convent. She strangles the priest with rosary beads, which is pretty badass in my opinion. She then proceeds to get the nail that they claimed that Jesus was crucified on and keeps it as a weapon for now. Cecilia then lights the operating room that was meant to be reserved for her on fire while Father Sal is still in the room. You think at this point that the main antagonist is defeated, but Sal quickly gets a fire extinguisher and extinguishes the flame, then chases Cecilia through the catacombs. Mind you, her water is still broken at this point and she's about to have the baby. The nuns mentioned earlier that these catacombs were off limits, and for good reason. While Sal is chasing Cecilia, she discovers a body in the catacombs. She finds her way out shortly after, but Sal drags her back into the catacombs just as she's about to escape. He then attempts to perform a C-section on her, cutting her stomach. But Cecilia kept the crucifixion nail and stabbed him in the throat, killing Sal. She then crawls her way out of the catacombs. Then she proceeds to give birth, in a scene that really makes Sydney Sweeney's portrayal of the character really genuine and is a really honourable performance. Sydney Sweeney has a lot of potential and can possibly be the next Scream Queen. I will play the scene for you now. After Cecilia agonizingly screams while giving birth, she picks up a large rock and then proceeds to kill the baby. Then the film finishes. Immaculate took some inspiration from those old-timey European horror films. If you're into religious psychological horror, then this one might be a good choice for you to watch. Immaculate is an enjoyable film and Sydney Sweeney portrays her character wonderfully.